Hey, good morning, everyone. Now it's all over the news. Vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. Everyone has a different view on whether to get them or not get them, and opinions fly all over social media, whether people are socially responsible or irresponsible, no matter really what decision they make. Now, don't get me wrong, medical science has made great strides and advancements over the years. Life expectancy is way up, and people generally live healthier lives, at least physically. But what about our spiritual lives? Do we take our spiritual medicine? Now, you're probably looking at the screen and thinking that, Frank's a little bit crazy, and you might be right, but hear me out. Today's story comes from Isaiah 37, and verses 14 and 15, and it's about King Hezekiah, who began his reign by bringing religious reform to Judah. Now, Hezekiah was not willing to count the favor of the Assyrian kings. The temple in Jerusalem was reopened, and the idols were removed from the temple. Temple vessels that had been desecrated during Ahaz's reign were sanctified for use in the temple. Now, the sacrifices were initiated with singing and the sounds of musical instruments, and the tribes in the northern kingdom, Israel, had been subjected to this Syrian dominance, but were invited back to worship. Now, aware that King Hezekiah had trusted God for deliverance, Sennacherib, he was the Assyrian king, he sent messengers to Jerusalem, and he's urging the people to surrender to him. Now, Sennacherib had boasted of having conquered 46 walled cities and having taken 200,000 captives, which is an enormous amount at that time. Now, his messengers taunted that God would not come to Judah's defense. So here we pick up in verses 14 and 15 at this point. And it says this: Hezekiah received the letter from the hand of the messengers and read it. And Hezekiah went up to the house of the Lord and spread it before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed to the Lord. Now you can read the prayer in the verses following, but notice Hezekiah's answer to a seemingly insurmountable situation. Unlike his predecessors, he didn't try to make alliances, he didn't scheme, he didn't go to his military leaders and demand a plan. Instead, he bowed before God. Now, our church father, Martin Luther, knew that prayer took enormous discipline when faced with an emergency. And our natural reaction is to worry and torture ourselves with anxiety. Luther stated, "The devil often tricks us when temptation or suffering first begins, whether dealing with spiritual or physical matters. He immediately barges in and makes us so upset about the problem that we become consumed by it." Now, see, the devil knows that what prayer can accomplish. And as we begin this new year, I hope that many of you are joining ACC in our annual read through the Bible. Now, my suggestion to you, and one that I follow, is to start each reading session with a prayer. When it's easy, and when I'm not faced with an emergency. Now, this helps me discipline myself so that when faced with something dire, that habit, that my first instinct is now then to turn to God. Like all good things, it takes some work, and I'll get better as I practice it. So for you, dedicate this time for maybe a week or 2 weeks, and then see the result. That prayer is the best medicine there is, not a replacement to the vaccines or your prescriptions from your doctor, but it's the best medicine to heal the spiritual wounds, to bring spiritual renewal and the blessings of God. And it's to restore our relationship with our Savior, Jesus Christ. It brings us closer to Him. Now, don't be surprised if that prayer starts to spill over into your physical spaces as well. God is everywhere and can do all things, and no prayer is too big for Him.